obviously did decide what was going to be next after a while of recovering. So what was next? What was the really cool adventure that you put yourself out there to attempt to do?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting too, because I think the first one maybe didn't go as well as hoped, but little did I know that, losing sometimes is actually winning. I was starting to do a lot of speaking, right? I'd already done that in scouting. So it was as a volunteer for my hospital. Um, I would speak about gun violence or gun safety issues. And then sometimes, like city council was going to be holding a hearing about something. Would you come and speak to them? Or speaking in the mayor's office. Next thing I know, I'm in the state capitol in Harrisburg for a gun safety rally. And people were asking, like, well, what can we do to change things? And they're like, well, maybe write to your legislator. And I raised my hand and said, well, what do you do if you write to your legislator about this and he doesn't write back, or you never hear from him? And I asked who my legislator was at that time, happened to be the majority leader. And there are a lot of people in the room. And next thing you know, this meeting is over. And I've got probably 6 people around me saying, did you ever think about running for office? I'm like, no, I ran for, it was a lot different running for lodge chief or running for section chief. Those were much easier things, and running for section chief, I need to get 46 votes. That's a lot different than being elected to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, but it certainly intrigued me. So after this event was over in Harrisburg, then we talked a little more, and one thing leads to another. And next thing you know, I'm a candidate for the House of Representatives against a 22-year incumbent who also happens to be the majority leader and was one of the most powerful men in the state. So we have about maybe 16 months to work on the campaign trail. Lots of people saying, how crazy I was. You're never going to beat this guy. But I kind of, was a student of the numbers and dissected them and knew that in presidential years, this guy was much more vulnerable. I also had a lot of things that could kind of neutralize him in this legislative district, in that one, the area I grew up in was at the one far end of the legislative district. My jewelry store was sort of in the middle of the district, and he and I lived about 3 blocks away from each other. So the neighborhood we lived in was a little different. So spent those times raising money. Had a campaign manager to work with me, lots of volunteers who believed in me. Again, going back to scouting, you think, right? We lead volunteers even as a youth. So that was kind of cool. And I think, you know, the part that really was interesting was, even if I had one, it's like I had all these people really working so hard day in and nights and weekends to help me get elected. And really all they were going to get out of it was the satisfaction of helping me and hoping that I was going to do a better job. So fast forward to election day, and, it's crazy. And my opponent, thought that he had won before election day even got there. And I had some pretty good indications that we were going to do okay. So spent that day visiting all the polling places that we could, shaking hands and thanking people for coming out, and was back at my house and had a whole, election headquarters set out at a Knights of Columbus hall. And the interesting thing was, as the numbers started to come in, it got real. And here we are, the polls close at 8 o'clock, and it's like 9:30, quarter to 10. There's people already at the election headquarters, hoping that they're going to have a party. And we're 50 votes apart. And I think there were two ways to look at it. 50 votes apart, he was ahead. But the other way was that nobody thought I had a chance at all. And but eventually, my campaign manager and I think maybe my brother Keith was there as well, we decided, like, we got to go see the people. And we quickly realized that election results weren't going to be done that night. So went down and talked to a bunch of people, thanked them all. And, people still, you're going to win. And next, like 2.5 weeks, there was a recount done, and pick up a couple votes here, a couple votes there, and eventually, everything was done, and I lost by 92 votes and had to call an end to that. And fascinating kind of piece in my life, an interesting footnote that this sent shockwaves around the entire Capitol, because all of these people who really wanted me to win because they didn't like my opponent. He was a very, kind of tough guy, and they were afraid of him, and all these people that realized, like, man, if we just would have believed in this guy and put a little bit of effort into helping him, he could have actually, won the election and beat this guy. So I lost, but you know what? As I look back on what came next, there's no doubt that I won, and the people that I've had the opportunity to help have truly won as a result of me losing the election.
This has been a clip of the Born to Be a Scout podcast. To catch the rest of this episode and any other episode or post, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Born to Be a Scout podcast, or look out for full episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you are a scout who would like to take your leadership in scouting, or even your future business career to the next level, be sure to check out NYLT Leadership Academy this summer and Leadership Heights at the 2026 National Scout Jamboree. In the meantime, be sure to lead your own adventure.